welcome. We are excited to get started with you all today. We'll give everybody a couple minutes just to settle in. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're coming from. We'd love to see who's with us today.
Yes, I love knowing different parts of the country people are coming in from. That's always kind of interesting.
It is.
So as we get going, just a reminder that we are recording. So you will be able to receive a copy of that tomorrow. We'll have an email going out with that, as well as your certificate of attendance and some links and resources that we'll be talking about today. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, we'll be periodically stopping for you to ask questions in the chat, but also feel free to pop into the Q&A box. Oh, it looks like the chat is disabled, so we'll make sure that that is good to go. Yes, so for now, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll make sure that we can do that.
Thank you, Linda and Michelle and Leslie, for letting us know that.
All right, well, I will try to get that fixed. I see some of you have answered where you're from in the Q&A. We have somebody here from Orlando. I'm also in Florida, so welcome.
Beautiful. And I'm from Chicago. And Christina?
I'm from Minnesota.
All right.
Yes, so I'll be facilitating today. We'll have Kim, our CSM, and Christina here with us. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
All right. So my name is Kim Pold, and I am the Client Success Manager for several of clients in the Midwest and in the East. I am located in Chicago, just about 5 miles from the city as a crow flies, and really enjoy my work. And I'm excited to have this time with all of you. My role in the company is to just what it says, client success. I want you to be successful in your journey with class and with Teachstone. And so that is my main focus. Christina?
Hi, my name is Christina Nystrom. I reside in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I am kind of in charge of upper Midwest all the way to New England. So if you live in that area, you may have heard from me before. I am an account executive, so I am charged with helping plan professional development and kind of helping you along with your class journey with you and your staff, and making sure that you have all the resources that you need to be successful in your implementation of class.
And of course, Christina, even though both of us are from the Midwest, sort of the Northeast, we have a full team that encompasses the entire country. So thank you all for being with us today.
Yeah, and in case I didn't say this already, I'm Isabella. I joined Teachstone a couple months ago. I was a teacher for 4 years before I came here, so I'm really excited to be working with a lot of educators. They're both former educators, so it's awesome to
Yes, Isabella,
be here.
We didn't mention that, did we? I'm a former first and third grade teacher for many years, and you, Christina, you are as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm a former elementary teacher. My sweet spot was 2nd through 4th grade.
Love it.
Cool. Well, we're still trying to get the chat figured out. In the meantime, whenever we say let us know, just use the Q&A box, and I'll just read that out to everybody. So thank you for bearing with us with that. But let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about a couple things that, as you probably saw on our social media, we'll be talking a little bit about being equipped for trauma-informed learning, navigating credentialing, and just staying energized with tactical, practical, professional development opportunities. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity to ask more questions and just take a few minutes to talk about any other concerns that you may have. So let's get into it. Before we start, we want to know what your role is. So you should see a poll pop up now, and just let us know what your primary role is. So I'm seeing quite a few instructional coaches. Awesome.
So teachers, and site leaders, each of you playing such an important role in this work every day.
Yeah.
Great.
Some observers.
I'm curious what the other is.
Yes, I was going to say, I'd love to know what
Yeah.
your role is if you selected other.
Oh, and it feels like the chat might be working now.
Yeah.
I
So
saw something come in. Education coordinator. Thanks, Margaret. Ah, love that. Look at everyone. Professional development coordinator. Love that.
Love to see family engagement and home-based specialists. That's awesome.
Oh, early childhood social worker, training coordinator.
awesome.
Oh, teach in Gilia River Indian community. So interesting. Director. I love that all of you are interested in this topic. It's a good topic.
Yeah. So we'll close the poll now, but it's awesome to see the many different roles that we have here with us today. So I'll share the results with you all.
Thanks, Isabella.
There you go.
Interesting.
All right, so we'll get started. First, we want to acknowledge that it is a challenging time for educators right now. We're facing unprecedented teacher turnover. We're seeing a lot of different new challenges arise after being in lockdown and having COVID for the past few years. So as we continue through the school year, we're about halfway. We figured it's a good time to start thinking about how we can check in, re-energize our workforce, and make sure that we're doing what we can to create an environment that teachers want to stay in and feel motivated by. And as us being former teachers ourselves, I think that's something that we can all speak to, as I'm sure many of you can. So we want to know how you can support your team. How are you doing that? How do you want to do that? So go ahead, let us know in the chat. For some reason, I'm not seeing that anymore. Kim, Christina, can you see it?
We can.
Great. So I don't know, maybe it's just me. So go ahead, you can share with everybody what you see.
Okay. So how do you want to
trust-
support your team? Maybe you're doing some really great things now, but maybe there are things that you want to be doing or wish you could be doing. So we're seeing things like Christian jump right into listening, mindfulness.
Resilience is huge, especially right now.
Mentoring,
Mhm.
growth mindset. Woohoo.
Preventing burnout. That
Yeah.
is a good one.
Regular check-ins. Wow, some great responses here. More about burnout. Giving them the support they need, not what we think they need. Very
It's
interesting.
awesome to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Oh, a bi-weekly breakfast. I love that. Love that. I'll go. Invite me.
right.
Weekly team meetings.
Very cool.
Oh, helping more in the class with them. I love that.
I love that too. It's always nice to have that support as,
Mhm.
teachers are in the front lines, and it's nice to have that in the moment.
And have someone step into like your role, your shoes. So you feel like you've really got like a partnership. I love that.
That's
How about just
awesome.
asking, how can I help? Right? I love that. Thanks, Eva. All right.
So thank you for all your responses. You can continue if you'd like. The first thing that we're going to talk about is, I think, something we've all probably experienced in some way, which is understanding and trying to be approachable and available to our students in the classroom, even when they've experienced trauma or we've experienced trauma ourselves, and how that can look a lot of different ways. So I'll hand it over to Christina.
Thank you, Isabella. So we know that there are a lot of challenges happening in the classrooms across the country right now in our early learning centers, and one of the biggest ones is teacher retention. We are unfortunately losing some fabulous educators at such a rapid rate, and you had mentioned a lot of things that have a theme within how you want to support your educators. And one of the biggest things that I saw was, how do we prevent burnouts? Teachers are getting burned out, our educators are getting burned out, and we want to support them, and we don't always know how to do that. And I heard someone say, asking them exactly what they need is so huge. And so I think that that really goes into when we're thinking about trauma and the past couple of years, and how COVID really was a traumatic event for so many of us and so many of our students, and understanding that people are approaching that trauma in different ways, and maybe what I need, Christina needs, is different than what Kim needs and what Isabella needs. So having those authentic conversations with your staff about what they need, because it's been an extremely hard time. There's growing stress due to what has been happening. We are seeing challenging behaviors in the classroom. I think about my littles during that time, especially in 2020, and coming into the classroom and talking about things that they saw on the news, or a family member was sick, or, parents were laid off from a job. And these kids, even though those are grown-up issues, they're carrying that stress and that trauma of that event with them, and it's presenting in a variety of different behaviors in the classroom that we may not have seen on this type of scale before. We've seen all sorts of behaviors, but I think that a common theme across the board is that we're seeing it on such a widespread scale, and we're seeing that these kids need support, and our educators need support in being able to help them understand their trauma and know the signs. So often I think we think of trauma as, a child who has experienced something so blatantly obvious as physical, or something that has been emotional that we can see or hear. But these underlying things can be just as traumatic as well, even not seeing their friends for, 2 years and having to interact on the internet as opposed to being able to play in person. That has an impact. We're also now seeing a lot of inequities in education come to light. And I think that COVID-19 and going through the pandemic has sort of brought to light a lot of issues within education. And so thinking about our communities of color and our students that may come from low income backgrounds, we don't always put those students in with trauma informed, but really coming from a low income background can have some impact that is traumatic. Experiencing inequities or racism or microaggressions is traumatic to a person, be it a student or a teacher. And so how do we create those spaces where those communities that are underserved and underrepresented are feeling supported? I really love the comment of having families involved in the classroom, especially when we're thinking about our communities of color. And if you work in Head Start or anything like that, getting families involved and understanding who these families are is so important. So I really loved that comment in there. And then trauma may look different from how we understand it, right? So it may not be so obvious. There are children who may come in and act out or cry or scream or throw a fit, but there are also children that, back off and become more reserved. Adults do that. I've seen it across the spectrum with adults as well, that adults show their trauma in different ways. Maybe they're having even an overexcited reaction to something can be a sign that their emotions are coming to the forefront and they're having some fight or flight feelings and having those really big feelings in the classroom. So all of these things I know I've seen in the classroom. Isabella, I know you just came out of the classroom too, and you taught the older ones, right? And so
Yes,
I'm sure
I did.
you saw some things while you were in there as
Mhm.
well that maybe we hadn't seen in previous years.
Mhm.
Definitely.
And I'm seeing that Charity placed in the chat there that we often refer to our early Head Start students as pandemic babies.
Mhm.
You know, really thinking and encompassing so much of what you've just talked about, Christina. So that's great. And, you know, maybe we could move to the next slide. So, you know, at Teachstone, we, of course, we're all about interactions, and we really believe that many solutions to some of these issues are based and grounded in interactions. And so today we want to talk to you a little bit about some of those potential solutions. Christina?
Yeah, so one of the solutions that we have that I've actually gone through myself, and as a former educator, I was really excited about it because I think that trauma-informed or trauma-informed education can sometimes be used as a really buzzy term in education, right? We hear it a lot, but do we have an understanding of what trauma is as a whole? Are we understanding the intersectionality of trauma? Are we understanding compounded trauma? You know, I think about the communities of color that were greatly impacted by COVID, that maybe, you know, also coming from backgrounds that were, you know, where they're having like a low income or coming from other sorts of situations, that's compounded. And that does lead to some more trauma in their lives. So this professional development that we have here, it gives educators a strong tool belt of strategies for being able to handle those challenging behaviors, but it also talks a lot about how to create that safe space for your staff as well, and how to support your staff in those challenging behaviors. There's a lot of reflection that has to come from it, and a lot of like taking a step back and examining not only someone's interaction with you and maybe, oh, I didn't realize that that came from a place of trauma, but also how can I help support in that moment and create an interaction that is going to be healing and supportive of that person. As Kim said, we really do believe that the power of interactions is the answer. Our daily interactions are what are most important and really help create a space where people want to stay and people flourish and students flourish. So
I love, Christina, that you're talking about like two parts here. It's almost like two pieces that make a whole, right? So you've got the trauma, you know, with the students that the teachers are trying to support. And when they can't figure out how to support that, there's stress, which is now not causing the teacher and the staff to feel that stress, and they're feeling that trauma that I can't help. And so really, you know, being able to look at both of those pieces. And I too have had a lot of success with programs who have used our interactions at the Heart of Healing training. And I do love the way it really looks at both of those pieces and gives you tools, really great tools to think about how you can confront those biases and how you can promote resilience. I think knowledge is power, right? And we have the opportunity to give knowledge here. And this is going to, I think, in a very subtle way, but a very strong way, really give our teachers that support they need to feel re-energized, like I can do this. I can help my child who is struggling with trauma. And in turn, it helps me struggle with mine.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that twofold that it has in there with educators and the children. And then I think about all of you here today that may be directors or coaches, and what a great resource to be able to look at that and say, I have a tool belt of how to help my educators feel like they're being supported, but I also have strategies that I can give them to use with their students because they are the ones on the front line. So there's many layers to it. And I feel like there's many different layers of support. And that's really what we need, especially with everything going on today. So that, as Kim said, that's really exciting. And when we know better, we do better. When we confront those biases, we can do so much better because we're bringing them to the forefront and we're aware. And then promoting resilience. Someone actually said that almost verbatim in the chat, which I was so excited about because that is the biggest thing that we can do for people right now and do for children is promote that resilience. How we can't erase their trauma. We can't take it away, but how do we support them and how do we help them on their journey to be able to come to your classroom or your center every day and feel like they're able to do their job successfully and that they're happy. And then when, with students, they're coming in and they're able to learn and flourish and make connections with their peers. So I think I really loved seeing that resilience piece because I think that is huge and is so needed right now.
I see a really great chat entry from Samira wanting to know how to spot trauma in children who cannot speak. There are a lot of nonverbal communication that's easy to pick up on, but much that is not very easy to pick up on. So I commend you, Samira, for wanting to know more about that. And, these types of trainings that we're talking about today and so many more that you can learn about resources on our community platform, teachstone.community.com, is a space where you're able to communicate with other educators in the field that are really trying to answer some of the same very questions that you are. So maybe we can even put that in the chat box, the teachstone.community.com. So I've got a way that we can think about, another way we can think about re-energizing our workforce. Maybe we can move along to the next slide. Thank you, Isabella, is keeping up with credentialing. So credentialing. So first of all, let's think about credentialing is for professionals, right? And our teachers are professionals. And I think it's so important for us to remind them that, they deserve to be treated like professionals and first and foremost by all of us here in the field. And it's so important that we honor them in that way. And how can we honor them is by really building quality around them and helping them feel like they are being supported individually by helping them continue their education. Really exploring ways that they can grow professionally with meaningful professional development that inspires them to do better and to be better. And it really, opening up credentialing possibilities for your staff is really opening up a future for them. And they start to really realize that you want to invest in them. So if you can move to the next slide. So when we think about investing in your team, I just want to talk about a couple of ways. One of my favorite, I will have to say, so many programs that I work with across the country are searching for ways to invest in their staff that is meaningful, that really helps, that really speaks to, I see you and I see where you want to go and I want to support you because you're worth supporting, right? Everyone wants to be invested in. And so creating a pathway to success through CDA with class is such a wonderful gesture on the parts of programs toward teachers. Many of you probably are familiar with CDA. There are many places that offer CDA training, but what I really want to tell you about here today is the CDA with class that really takes the class dimensions and domains, those interactions that matter, and really wraps all around CDA. And, by providing this sort of team approach to professional learning, because when you're in the CDA program, you are placed in a cohort of other teachers like you that are trying to earn your credentialing, and you are being able to connect with them in a really easy to use platform, and you are actually in charge of your own pacing. So teachers they have a syllabus that they need to sort of be following, and we have facilitators that help them sort of manage to stay on track. But for the most part, it's not like they have to be pulled out of the classroom to work on some coursework at a certain time every day or every week, because this is on their time. And what I love about our CDA program too is that you're, as directors and educational advisors and all those different roles that you play supporting teachers, you can be involved in this process by just chatting with them about what they're learning, asking them to share with their other colleagues what they're learning in the CDA program. And all along, our facilitators are helping them create what's called their portfolios. And so their portfolios then will be ready to present to the council. We have a CDA council, as you all know, and you have to complete their steps outside of Teachstone and our CDA class to be credentialed. I've worked with several programs who recently, with one for the last, I want to say 10 months. So back in January, I spoke with them and talked about how can we re-energize. And we thought about those assistant teachers, those ones that are supporting in the classroom that maybe don't have the credentials to be a lead teacher yet, but we see in them the passion and the desire, and we want to support them. And so why not present them with a way that they could earn college credit hours, 9 college credit hours, get their CDA wrapped around in class, so they're really understanding the interactions. Or even CEUs if college credit isn't something that they're interested in. But we offer that both ways. So this particular program in the Chicago area started out in January with a cohort of about 20. And then each month as we ran cohorts, they continued to enter learners from their organization. And to date, I think we've had about 80 of their teachers go through CDA with class. And as the cohorts flow, they begin to graduate. And so basically what this program is doing is they're creating a workforce, right? A crop of new, of newly credentialed teachers that are ready to go, and they're building that workforce and thinking about the future. And they have teachers who are like, wow, I'm being invested in because the program is supporting this financially for them. So really exciting stuff. I'll stop there for any comments or questions from any of you or the chat.
I love what you said about building quality around your workforce, and that investment from your employer, like how powerful and re-energizing, and just feeling like you're important and feeling like someone is investing their time in you to make you a quality educator. I think that's so huge. And the fact that it's all surrounded with class and quality interactions. I mean, it's really cool. And to hear that many in Chicago have gone through is incredible.
Yeah, it's just been so wonderful to watch this blossom, right? And to see, how we can partner with an organization to really help move the needle in this direction. So that's pretty re-energizing, right? So we're going to look at some of the trauma and help re-energize there. We're looking at how to do some credentialing, and then we're going to look at giving tools, giving your team the tools that they need. We can move forward.
Yes. So this is an area that's particularly close to my heart. I think we've all sat through professional development that was less than specific. Maybe it felt kind of random, disconnected. You're sitting in there for a couple hours realizing that none of what they're talking about is really going to impact your day-to-day as an educator. So we thought it'd be kind of interesting just to see what everybody had to say about this. Have you ever been to a PD that really just felt random and disconnected? And how did that make you feel? I can think back halfway through the school year, if as an English teacher, I had essays to grade. I taught middle school for a couple years and then high school. When I had to sit through long meetings, when I had a stack of essays to grade and it's winter and I want to go home and I'm already tired, sitting through those sessions was less than motivating. It was not fun. On the flip side, being at presentations that were tactical, that gave me like tangible tools, such as those that helped me address behavioral issues in the classroom or respond to the needs of the demographics that I worked with, was really empowering. And that was something that gave you like a little bit of a boost, like, okay, here we are mid-year slump. We can kind of combat that with tactical tools. So we'd love to see what you have to say.
That mid-year slump is real.
Yeah, it's super real. And we're getting close to it. We're about to go through the holidays and then come back from February can be brutal, or that stretch
February is
between
very
February
brutal.
to spring break. So,
Katie's
um,
saying it's hard to concentrate when you're disconnected.
yes,
You
It
feel
is.
let down and frustrated. Kate?
yes,
I
Um,
think
yeah,
of what someone said earlier in the chat about asking, and this connects so well because I often felt in professional developments that they were trying to give us what they thought we needed instead of actually giving us what we needed and what our students needed. So
right,
it's demoralizing. It really is, and it's hard to focus on it when it feels like this does not connect to me.
yeah, like
right.
busy work, right? Like I don't need
Yeah,
busy work. I
we
got
don't
enough
want
of
busy
that.
work. It can
Well,
add to stress. You feel like a poor use of your time and resources. I want to add here that we do have some webinar series addressing this need as well that we'll be sending out to you in case you missed that this summer. And we also have some series on trauma-informed learning. So that kind of aligns with the content in interactions at the heart of healing so that you can put it to use in those professional development sessions. But Kim, I'll hand it over to you.
absolutely. I love Michelle's. This is beautiful. I think there's a very strong correlation between the interactions and relationships with teachers and the level of value seen in professional development.
Yeah.
Right? And it comes from the top down too. Everyone has to be invested. So I'm so excited to just share my passion with you about some of the quality professional learning opportunities that I believe we have. And, you know, I'm sure there's others like this perhaps out there, but this one, our custom events, I'm just going to say it, is just such an amazing, I think, gift to provide your educators and your coaches, your entire organization. Actually, the reason that I think that custom events by Teachstone is so exciting is because it is laser focused, right? It's short, bite-sized 45-minute sessions that can be data driven. We have a host of titles that we have created, and all of them have direct correlation to the domains and dimensions for class. And we have teacher titles. We also have ones that are more applicable to coaches or education managers of that nature. And I love too that you know, it's worthy professional development because it's really making a nod to where you're at in your learning. And how we work our custom events is it's very customized. Like the title says, we have this kind of smorgasbord of titles. And basically, you know, I sit down with you and we sit down with you and we talk about where you're at, what do your teachers need, you know, where are there opportunities of growth. We could look at your observation data if you cared to. We could go down that route. We look at the professional learning that you've had in the past that was successful. We hone in on titles and areas of interest, and then we can build out an event for one day, a one-day virtual event where you might be able to go in and out of anywhere up to 6 to 7 sessions, different sessions. And teachers and leaders, we all like to have different titles that we can go into, right? Pick our choice. What's my choice? I get to go here or I get to go there. Gives us a little bit more freedom. So you can build out your custom event with choices. You can build out a custom event with tracks. So maybe you have all your infant teachers and you have a track for them that's just to what they need to be focused in on their dimensions and domains. Or maybe there is a track for, you know, 0 to 5. It would be applicable to anybody in that ECE world. So we have different tracks. We offer all of our titles in Spanish. So recently I ran a custom event for a large program, and we had a Spanish track for each of the different areas of learning for age levels. And so that was really, I mean, the Spanish speaking participants were so happy to see that. And I think like, wow, that's what we should be doing. And I love the idea that it can be, again, I'll go back to that data driven too. If you really wanted to pull that data and take a look and see, you know, where are my teachers struggling the most? And what can we provide to them? And I think those 45-minute sessions, so this is what I'm hearing from teachers, is it's those 45-minute sessions, right? Bite-sized, small chunk, really easily fit into their day. You know, I sit down with the program advisors and say, you know, what is that time of day, that sweet spot? Is it 12:30 to 1:15? is it 1 to 1:45? We just need 45 minutes where we can grab the teacher. The teacher can actually even be sitting in the classroom while the students are resting or having their nap time and have their headphones on and be receiving this, small little nugget of information. And at the end of the session, they walk away with the next steps tip sheet, which is really, I think, a great way to continue on the learning, extend the learning, because then as education managers and coaches, those who attended the sessions, you can say, hey, in our PLC meetings, bring that tip sheet from this session that you went through at the custom event with class last week or 2 weeks ago, and let's see where everyone's at with that. Have you tried anything? And so it just really extends the conversation. And I did talk about, how we can do full day events, but we can also do events that span over time. So for a larger program over a span of 6 weeks, we had once a week. We had the infants on Tuesday and the toddlers on Wednesday and the pre-K on Thursday. And just for that 45-minute time slot, but it was the same day, same time for 6 weeks. So we were able to build on what we were offering with those titles and with that content. Also, we've done things where we've just done 2 half day back to back, because maybe you have some PD days, but you have other things that you have to bring in, right? Responsibilities, health and safety and things like that. So what's beautiful about the custom event, it's we can build it just the way that it fits for your organization. And it's those bite-sized chunks. You don't feel overwhelmed when you walk away, like, oh, I just got all this information I need to process now. So, I'm just really thrilled to be able to say that this is one of those professional developments that we offer of many that I think right now, when we can't pull teachers out of the classroom because there's no one to take over for them, that this has really become a great way to still feed our teachers, right? It's still important. We can't say, sorry, no PD because there's no one to cover for you. That doesn't show value. That doesn't say you're a professional that needs to be fed. We have to keep doing those things. So I told you I was passionate about it. Christina.
Yes, I love that. And I really love what you said, because we don't, unfortunately, the retention isn't there right now. And so being able to offer them that valuable professional development that is specifically designed to what they need, whether it's their age group or something that they requested or something that they were able to choose out of 6 different sessions, giving teachers that agency. I really loved what you said about being able to choose, and how exciting, because so often we don't get to choose our professional development. We're told, hey, you need to show up, and oftentimes it's all day, and this is what the topic is. And so I think that that's really cool to be able to really keep our educators at the center of the focus, and understanding that their time is valuable, but they can still get that quality PD in a bite-sized, manageable chunk.
Awesome. Love that. So I think we can go on to the next slide. Thanks.
Yes. So I just wanted to share a couple other resources for you if you are interested in just honing those skills of whether or not you want to bring in, Teachstone custom events for this awesome kind of content, or if you're still trying to work on planning your own professional development days that are precise, that are quick, that provide relevant information. We do have a YouTube channel with a number of webinars that are really awesome, that address those needs and that work in conjunction with class if you're involved with class. And even a few with interactions at the heart of healing. So we'll be sending you those links in the email that you'll be receiving tomorrow, so that you can stay connected there. Because like we both said, it's so important right now that when teachers are feeling so drained and so overwhelmed by maybe an excessive workload right now, just because we don't have the bodies in the classrooms, that we really value their time and give them tools that are actually helpful. Instead of taking a couple hours on something that could be shared in an email, really just respecting their time, giving them the opportunities to do things asynchronously and just at times that are convenient for them, and hopefully not outside of the classroom, right? We don't want to be sending home our educators with more work at the end of the day,
Yeah,
using
we
up
don't
their
need that.
time for like meetings that maybe they don't
Absolutely.
need. Exactly.
Mhm.
So we'll be sending you all that. Sorry, go
And
ahead.
Isabella, I was just wondering, we
Yes.
can move to next steps. Is there a way that if anyone's interested in any of these things we've talking about today, that they can contact us?
Yes. So we'll be sending out contact links for you as well, so you can get in touch with somebody directly if you have more questions. We also encourage you to follow us on social media. It's a really great way of seeing what's going on with all things class and Teachstone. We have a learning community that you'll receive a link to as well. That's a really awesome place to connect with other educators and leaders to talk about what's going on, maybe offer up your own advice to people who have questions. I encourage you to follow us individually on LinkedIn as well, because we share things that are going on. And again, it's great to have this just professional network of people involved in education in touch with each other so we can help each other out during this time. Kim, did you want to share more about the community?
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to a
We
little
talked
bit,
to it
mentioned before about
earlier.
the community .teachstone.com. I just think it's a wonderful place for us, for educators, us, I say, because once an educator, always an educator,
Always an educator.
to meet and to connect, and just to really even, ask questions, look at resources, pose questions, just become part of a group, right? All of us in education are just a little bit crazy, right? Let's all admit it. You got to be. And so I like to hang with like people. So, please, I encourage you to join that. And looking at the chat.
Yes.
Um,
So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to pop them in the chat or in that Q&A box. We can take a couple minutes to address those needs. Kim, in the meantime, would you mind telling us a little bit more about what some of those custom events look like some of the topics that people have covered, or what kind of data they're diving into?
Sure. Before I do that, though, Sarah says, how would you suggest dealing with staff who are unaware of that they actually need PD? I think back to attending a big conference many years ago, and one of the teachers from the school looked at the sessions offered and said, I don't need any of these. I already know all of this. Right. I think, yeah. How would we deal with that? Having an open mindset, a positive mindset, always thinking that you can learn and help, teachers grow. Christina, what comes to mind? That is a tough one.
Yes, I mean, being an educator, I think that we're all lifelong learners, right? And there's always something to learn. I have encountered educators that have said similar things. I think we all have in the past, and it's a little bit tougher if you're an administrator or a director. I think that those interactions, being able to talk with them and being open about, well, here are some growth opportunities that I think may be beneficial. So why don't we go through together? And I'd love to pick your brain about what we might think be best for you, and I can help guide you if maybe you're not sure, or think that maybe this doesn't really apply to me. I can give you some more information of why I think this might be beneficial. I think so often it's about the delivery and how we talk with each other, because it is kind of tricky, and sometimes we have to have those tricky conversations with each other. And so yeah, that delivery and that we're lifelong learners, that growth mindset is so important.
Well, and remember we talked about how important it is to make sure that it's meaningful PD,
Yes.
right? So sometimes that's all it needs, is someone to say, this is really meaningful PD and something I don't think you've ever really experienced before. Isabella, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, it just brought to mind a moment a couple years ago where I was at a conference, and we were all reflecting on the different sessions that we'd been to, and my principal pointed out that some of them did feel redundant or maybe not well thought out. And he said if we felt that way about a session and we could propose to him a proposal for that conference, that he would really work to help us get to those conferences that we wanted to go to. So I think there is a way of rewarding that, right? Like if you do have a lot of experience, and this is something that I think, education maybe lacks a little bit, is rewarding people for the experience and the expertise that they do have. And then we start to feel burnout or taken for granted, once you've been in it for a long time. But just giving people a platform to share those things that they do know, if they really do know it, test themselves a
Yeah.
little bit, but put your money where your mouth is.
Love that. Treating you like a
But
professional, right? You have
exactly. Yeah.
How about that?
And if any of you have solutions that you would offer, this would be a great reason to join that learning community that we have online that we'll send the link to, or feel free to answer it in the chat. We have a lot of great resources here.
And then Isabella, you had asked me to give you just a few titles from those custom events that I told you that are directly aligned to the dimensions and domains of class. So I just pulled up the flyer, and we have things like reading and responding to cues during floor time for our infants, or teacher talk during feedings, or early language support during routine care. For toddlers, some of our more exciting ones are supporting independence at mealtime, building relationships during routine care, proactive approach to behavior at play. And then for our pre-K kiddos, we look at all of those domains, but we know instructional support sometimes can be troublesome. So creating conversation during content-focused times of the day, encouraging children to explain their thinking, or feedback loops during small group time. So that's just a smattering of some of the titles that we have. And for designed for coaches, our coach sessions can be 45, 60, or 90 minutes. So that's kind of nice. But how about using data to inform professional development, or supporting interactions to enhance math development? All some really great titles there. So reach out if you would like to have more information about this. But I'm telling you, these 45-minute nuggets, teachers are walking away feeling appreciated and excited to try them in the classroom.
Great. So we'll just give another minute just in case anybody else has any other questions. It's been a pleasure to be here with all of you today. Do we see anything else in the chat?
No, thanks, Eva, for sharing your email. Let's see. So we've got that in, we'll check that for the correct email.
Awesome.
And let's see, class scores are too stressful for my teachers. Oh, Donna, we don't want the class scores to be stressful. What we'd rather want is we want our teachers, our professionals, to understand that because the work they do is so important and so deep, that we need some kind of a tool to help them understand how they can better themselves professionally. And it's not a gotcha, I promise. It's actually a tool that will help you become a better professional, to make you more aware. So I just really just don't want people to feel like it's a gotcha. And how do you support directors that do not want teachers to see scores? That's a tough one, because I know that everybody has their own opinion on this. And I'll share mine, and Christina, I'd love to hear yours as well. But to me, you can't change data that you can't own. And if you want to own your professional learning, you got to be able to see it. And you got to not only see it, but you have to have someone explain it to you in an understanding way, so that you really understand what you're looking at. What does the data really mean? It's not just numbers, because there's a whole lot of stuff behind those numbers, right? So to me, you got to have the data to own the data, to change the data.
You do. And what's really great too is that, so often I hear we do the formal class observations twice a year, and in the interim, you can have those informal observations where you're not necessarily focusing on the scores, but really just a quick pop in, still using the class tool, having those informal conversations and those discussions of growth opportunities. But I do agree is that there's a balance, right? We don't necessarily want to hold ourselves to a number and place our entire value on that specific number, but we don't see it that way. It is a growth opportunity, and we have been fortunate enough to be able to make quality interactions quantifiable and be able to say, hey, here's an opportunity for growth for you, but also here are the wonderful, amazing things that you're doing within the classroom. But we do, again, educators are lifelong learners, and I think that there definitely needs to be some data to be able to support and move us forward.
Thanks, Christina. Hey, Isabella, how are we doing?
We're looking good. I haven't seen any more questions pop up. Do you see any in the chat? Do we have it?
Sure don't.
Well, in that case, we want to say thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to continuing contact with you. We'll send you an email tomorrow again with this certificate of attendance, recording, any kind of resources that we talked about today. You'll get access to all of that tomorrow. And we just encourage you to stay in touch, connect with us on social media, join the learning community so we can continue these discussions. But we hope you have a great afternoon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all the work you do. We appreciate you. Superheroes.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great afternoon.